software to help you manage your customer relationships in one place. So what do we do? To keep it really simple is we give you all the tools in one platform for your marketing, sales, and service activities. Whether that's building a website, getting more traffic, doing lead generation, closing deals through a CRM system, or even managing your existing customers. HubSpot basically has all the tools you need to manage your customers and those customer relationships. Keep it even more simple, we're the front end side of your business. Okay? Anything that's customer facing, HubSpot has a tool for you to manage it. Okay, so that's basically what we are. So it's basically a CRM with software around it to manage your customers, which we call our growth platform. Okay. In terms of then what we're actually going to look at today is actually our customers. We have around 70,000 of them. How has COVID-19 impacted their marketing and their sales? So within HubSpot, we obviously have things like sales pipelines. So how many new opportunities came in and how many new deals actually got closed. Sales emails, so think about prospecting emails that are being sent out. Sales calls, so what's the sales call activity that's being done by our customers? That's more on the sales side. And then on the marketing side, we can look at how did email marketing perform for our customers during COVID? What happened to website traffic, lead generation, and also looking at, for example, ad budgets. Okay. So first of all, we're going to look at kind of like the sales pipeline development. We have here the total numbers. We also can divide this by region, which would be Europe, APAC, North America, and South America. But we can also divide it by company sizes and industries. Okay. So just to start, what we've obviously have seen with all our customers is that deal creation really went down around the second week of March. Okay, see there's some questions coming in. Okay, that's so good. So deal creation really came in around the second week of March, and that happened to all our customers. Obviously, that's when lockdown came in, and it's still down compared to the previous year. Okay. The same happened to deals closing. But as you can see on this trend line is we've really seen an uptick, and that actually the worst we've already overcome, and that it's going back to business as usual in the last couple of weeks. Be quite curious if you're seeing something similar. With us, there was not really an impact per region, as you can see here. So whether that's in Asia or Europe, it's been around the same numbers all over, even though South America had some bigger bumps, as it's a more volatile economy. If we look at company sizes, even there we haven't seen too much of a difference. If we've divided it by small businesses, mid companies, and large companies. But we haven't seen too much of an uptake between those companies as well. If you look then at deals closed, there we see a difference that small business is really getting back to normal, while the larger companies, they're still very, very slow and they still have a lot to do. And if we then can also divide this by industry, there's definitely been some industries that have been hit harder than others as well. So yeah, I think Tony and me, we have also discussed a lot what are good industries to look at right now, like with everything going on. So consumer goods, e-commerce, B2C is working quite well. The same for your computer software and IT. As you can see here on the trend line, impact that this industry had has been relatively small compared to others. And that also applies to construction and manufacturing, which is going back to normal. Tony, I'm not sure if you had any lessons that you took out of this as well.
Sorry, Mark. No, I'm struggling to keep up with letting people in and keeping people muted so that everyone can hear you.
No worries.
Yeah, I think in terms of it was more the overall trend that I found was encouraging, and particularly from a local perspective. So I don't know if everybody has got the jargon here. When we're talking about deals, we're talking about literally sales opportunities. So we immediately saw deals in the CRM, as did everybody else, drop off. And what we've been looking at here is, are those deals starting to repopulate, if you like, starting to come back up to that average across the middle, which is the average pre-COVID. So there's not an awful lot of individual learning from there, apart from the identification of some of the individual industries. So that's allowed us to, we focused in as a business as real inbound, particularly around the computer, software and hardware industry. We've got quite a lot of very different conversations going on at the minute compared to the pre-COVID conversations, and that's probably mirrored with everybody in the group, I would think. We've also changed the focus, or pivoted in a way, in some cases, I think, completely.
Interesting. One of the things that just stood out to me is human resources, that it had such a massive jump as well. We obviously have a lot of customers there in that industry, but really the jump there in terms of recruitment has been massive as well.
Yeah.
Same if you look at deals creation, so that's really like future pipeline. Something that's really interesting there is construction is really bumping up right now. So that could be a reason for the lockdown. That could be because it's really needs to look more at digital opportunities. But construction seems to be the biggest rise in terms of new business opportunities, almost 20% higher than last year.
It's Chris Roberts. I was on a call last week with one of the world's biggest HR recruitment companies, and they've said for the last 3 weeks they've been saying their stats come back very strongly in the last 3 weeks.
Interesting.
Varies differently. Asia is ahead, as you'd expect. Temporary staff was coming back, had been fairly strong throughout because there's been a lot of hiring of temporary staff, but the permanent positions, and interestingly, execs has not been affected particularly throughout this event.
Exactly. I think that's something we've seen overall, Chris. That's a really interesting point, is that they've kind of stayed, but it's been the lower positions. In terms of like the regions, so we have some data on it. For ourselves, we have not seen too much of a difference. Obviously, you can see here APAC is almost back to normal levels. So it's a -5%, and that's on the week of 11th of May. So I'd say APAC probably back to normal. EMEA slowly getting there. LATAM and NORTAM still a big jump to make. And that's pure new opportunities. So companies wanting to talk with people. If we're looking at closing, again, Asia's up together with North America. And we see that Europe is down around 20% compared to last year. So that's kind of where our data is.
That's interesting. The figure you had there was 17%. That's exactly what the global HR firm said. They've recovered to 17% of the previous levels.
Interesting. 70% of the total, or 17% lower?
If you look at your 17% there, if I take your reading correctly, that was for EMEA. They were saying, I can't remember, I'd have to look at my notes, but I have a feeling that was globally they'd seen figures come back to 17% drop on what it was before, and going in the right direction. So I think the number is bang on the same.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it looks like it's bang on the same. Yeah. So yeah, that's really like opportunities in terms of like where opportunities coming from, where they created. From there, we're kind of going to look at, so what are people doing now? What are salespeople doing? What's working? What isn't? So within HubSpot, we're obviously integrated with salespeople, with their sales system. One of the things that salespeople have done since COVID started was blasting out sales emails. And as you can probably expect, there's a rise of around 67% compared to the previous year.
That's not me, by the way. Okay, maybe a few are.
So basically, just to explain, what does a sales email mean in HubSpot jargon? So a sales email means one-on-one. So me to Tony, sending out a prospecting email. So like, hey Tony, I think you should buy HubSpot for these reasons. Let's book a call. These kind of emails have jumped around 67%. As you can probably expect, response rates are actually down massively, around 28%. So the conclusion we can kind of draw from this is that, do these outreach emails work? Not really.
It's very interesting, Mark, because when the group was born, one of the first conversations we ever had was, what do we do now? And bearing in mind, this was early weeks of the virus. And very much, I think everybody's instinct was that and we didn't necessarily put it quite like this, but now is the time for marketing more so than selling. And marketing covered a lot of territory. So that was brand, that was position, that might be reach, that kind of thing. But what everybody felt was it was the wrong time to sell. What's been interesting, or what that is maybe showing, and I think some of the other data will also back up, not only are we feeling like it's not potentially it's not a good time to sell, but people aren't buying either. And I find that fascinating. So, is it companies are driven back by people who didn't want to buy, or have consumers been driven back by companies that didn't want to sell? Or is everybody affected equally, and that kind of activity has just been diminished by the effect of the virus itself? I suspect it's probably that latter.
Exactly, and I think it brought obviously a whole lot of uncertainty. The good thing is though, if you look back at this graph, you do see that even deals that are closing, it's not as bad as it used to be in the beginning of April, which really was a drop of around 40% for our customers in terms of how much they closed this year compared to last year.
How much of this, the closing, because a lot of people are doing a lot of housekeeping at the moment, and I know we all use software systems, and I'm not always good at keeping on top of the small things that need to be done, like housekeeping. How much of this might be attributed to people just cleaning out old deals, closing them off, tidying up and ready for the fresh start, the new beginning, the restart, as people are calling it?
It's a great question. So there's definitely that element into it, in terms of people who might work on their pipeline, people who might refresh it. That's definitely possible. But if you look at the sample size, these are 70,000 companies managing a CRM system where you probably have an average deal stream of around 30 deals a month, something like this. So like in terms of sample size, you're talking about 2 million deals there for that specific month. So there could definitely be an element of it, but in terms of total size, I do think it's quite representative.
And don't forget, Chris, it's these would represent deals won. Deals closed is not deals closed and lost. These would be deals closed and won.
Closed and won, not for any reason.
Yeah. So you're not closing them off as in, because you can even delete deals out of your pipeline rather than close them. Yeah. So otherwise, but yeah, it's a very good question.
In terms of sales emails, obviously one question that I thought was very interesting is, are there differences per industry? So if I reach out to different industries, who is kind of sending out more emails? Well, construction seems to be massively on outbound right now, and so is manufacturing, and the same applies to consumer goods. These are two industries we've seen they've done a massive amount of sales outreach, which is interesting because there might obviously be opportunities there for marketing. If we then look at response rates, it's basically low for all of them, except for entertainment, which has done relatively well. So there's not too much we found there, to be honest, in terms of industries, what worked, what didn't. The same applies to response rates.
Sorry, Mark. Chris mentioned a comment earlier. I thought it's worth coming back to it. Some data on contractor hiring. It's like 50% or 44% down year on year, 41% down month on month. And again, that's mirrored in that outreach, isn't it? So as that sector has obviously contracted, pardon the pun, and they've gone outbound, they've gone to try to sell. You can see the jobs have dropped off in the industry as well. So just another indication of the validity of this data, I think.
I've got a question. I appreciate the leads, the sales cycle is a different length for different sectors, but you mentioned that construction has sent out an awful lot of emails. How has that affected the number of deals they've won, as opposed to other sectors who perhaps have sent out less emails and have converted far more?
Mm-hmm. So with that, like, this data is available, so we can actually look at making those combinations, Ian. So like we could go here actually into the sales emails, having a look at the specific industry in this case. So let's say we want to pick the construction and compare that data. In this case, Their response rates are super low, but their email sends, as mentioned, have been super high. And compare that then to your deal pipelines here. So as we can see here, the deal pipelines of construction companies have actually been going up in the beginning of May. So yes, they've sent out a whole lot of emails, but they did actually grow their pipeline by around 20% compared to the previous year.
Is that by number of deals or?
This is volume, so this is pure volume. So it's not. We have amounts as well. The data is not taken into this benchmark. In terms of closing rates, because obviously you can have a lot of volume, we also see there in construction that it's still quite a lot down, as you can see here. So their closing rate is still low, but they are building solid pipeline probably for the next quarters. And I think that's really what they're looking at. But we've also looked at calls. So what kind of like, okay, sales calls, how's that actually going? So emails being up, sales calls actually have been going down. So HubSpot has its own calling solution. We also integrate with third-party calling solutions, and you can also just lock your calls within HubSpot, even through the app if you want. So in terms of calls, they've been down. Part of the reason obviously is you don't work in an office. So that could be obviously a reason for calls being down. But there could be other reasons as well, especially if we divert it by industry. So we see some industries like construction, like recruitment, like travel, have been hit quite hard, while manufacturing, computer software have been relatively stable compared to those. So also there we do see a difference in terms of who's actually having quality conversations right now. And we do see that computer software is kind of picking up. Well, there are some other industries that still need to take a lot of steps. Again, we looked at different sizes. We haven't seen too much difference in terms of company sizes within our data. And the same applies to calls. If we look per region, APAC is really taking on. They are 4% higher than last year, and they're having quality conversations. So that's kind of the sales side of it. But next, HubSpot also has a whole marketing system, where one of the things that we have obviously is a marketing email tool, sending out marketing campaigns. So this is where it gets quite interesting. So as probably expected, marketing has sent out more emails over time since COVID happened. So that's around here. So their email sends have increased, I would say 25% month over month. But what's really interesting is actually the open rates of those emails and the engagement on it has been way higher than it was last year. So they're sending more and the open rate is actually higher as well. Here, even 30% higher than it was last year. So that's actually showing in our data that email marketing campaigns are actually working with your loyal subscriber base. And it's really a good time to nurture everyone that you've already had a relationship with. And that email campaigns can really generate quick wins right now. Anything you want to add there, Tony? Have you seen something similar?
Absolutely. It actually ties in very much with the early calls when we were in the immediate throes of the virus. We focused in, and I've written on this topic on three sort of immediate tactics for business. The first was to stop the bleeding. And that was to cut any extraneous costs going out. You probably should do that every quarter anyway, if not every 6 months, to make sure you haven't got any extra subscriptions in there that you don't need, and so on and so on. The second was to try and understand what it was you could still sell and how you would sell that. And that's been the big conversation, I think, the so-called transformation conversation, or the move to digital, that I think we've seen the beginning of, but is going to massively ramp up in the next few months, especially looking at some of the changes that people like Facebook are making to their offering. But the third thing that we talked about in this group, and I've written about, is that looking after those customers, looking after your advocates, the fans, the brand fans of the business, and the people who put the bread and butter on the table, and clearly everybody else has responded in the same way. the ones that we've got, the ones we won, the ones who are going to come back, the upsell, cross-sell opportunities are the ones that it is worth looking after. And it's good to see that that focus bears out, and particularly from an inbound perspective, obviously that would be a hot topic for us, and it's good to see that that's replicated across the regions and across the industries.
Exactly, because now like having like it's per region. This all applies in terms of sends, in terms of opens. It basically it's shown all around with all companies and all industries. Some better than others, of course, but in general, all industries are really looking at kind of good open rates from their marketing emails to their loyal base.
So can I throw out a question on the open rates side of it? So we might expect an increase in the volume, and that's shown there, a significant increase in volume, but significant increase in open rates. Is that because the marketing messages have changed to be reflective of what was going on? Or is that because people are bored because they're sitting around and there's nothing to do? What do people think in the group? Have you seen your own open rates go up?
I think one of the points I did raise this a couple of weeks ago when someone was talking about, when you showed us some of these graphs, is that in the beginning there was shock. There was a huge rush to organize everybody's IT so that they could communicate from their work at home bases and that sort of thing for those people who could keep on going and work from home. And I think as they've settled into that way of working now, they now have this ability to, or basically they just waiting for something to happen and an email, who's that from? And they go and have a look at it. So their opening rate has naturally gone up because they've got nothing else to do. And they've got to be by their computer because they're expecting a call from someone. They may be doing some work, but then it's a distraction. I think that's what's happened with emails.
People have had less to do as well, haven't they? There's less work.
Yeah, they become, yeah, and they've also got a few hours each day because they're not commuting to the office. Yeah. So they probably start at the same time as they leave the house, and they'd finish at the time they'd normally get back. So they're working this many hours, except what they've got to occupy them. They haven't got the breaks, by the photocopier or by the coffee machine or the water cooler. They've got their meetings in the office, but they're not doing those through Zoom. People probably keep those restricted to about an hour. They want them to get on with making calls, contacting their people and everything else. I think that's part and parcel of why more marketing emails have gone out, because it's a way of communicating with your customer base. And there's this ability now that people have got time on their hands. They're either sitting there with their phones in their back gardens enjoying the sunshine, or when they walk in the park, they're still communicating. I think what I'm interested in seeing is what the opening rates will be like after everyone gets back to work, and will this working from home thing, I've seen a couple of things go on where some companies where there's a successful working from home as they were with everyone going to the office each day. So they are looking at relocating, and I've got a meeting on later this week with somebody doing some research work into commercial property, and they're asking what I've seen about the way companies are looking at relocating away from city centres, reducing their overhead because they realise they can do as much business without actually having expensive offices, and will it affect the commercial property market? So it's very, very interesting how the future will develop in the way people do their work. And I think you mentioned it already, Tony, about the way people are working is different now, and the way people are thinking about their lives. So will that affect the way sales go more online, less into the supermarket? I'm blathering now, so it's your conversation.
I get exactly where you're coming from, though, and I think it's entirely relevant. Let me just ask Sarah, who's always a bit shy and retiring. Sarah Bruton, your business has been shut, isn't it, in effect? Have you managed any email marketing while you've been closed?
We have. I think initially we saw a bit of an increase because at that stage people wanted information from us, what they did about gift voucher sales, what they did about appointments, etc. So it raised quite a lot at that point, but as the time has gone on and we're still closed, it's dropping.
Right. So
and the challenge is now is to keep the engagement because we're losing it.
So what's dropping? Your volume of emails going out, or the open rates are dropping? You mean
The open rates.
Oh, that's interesting. That is
That is
interesting.
interesting.
Okay, sorry, Matt. I just wanted to pose that and get a little bit of feedback.
No,
Please
this
carry on.
this is fantastic. Some engagement is it's great, Tony. We've also looked at website traffic. So again, we have here the high level totals. Website traffic, it has been going up quite a bit during COVID. Again, has it been people are bored, people maybe need more information. Most of our customers are B2B, by the way. So that could probably be a reason that, especially from your businesses, you probably want to kind of look everything up, like, are all my suppliers okay? Everybody that I'm working with. That could be a reason, absolutely. And maybe people just have more time to research, looking for more content. I certainly am browsing a whole lot more. Again, we see this per region kind of develop. We've seen this per company size. The interesting there is the enterprise one seems to get a lot of traffic growth. So really the big companies, over 200 employees, they're seeing a lot more traffic coming to their website because all their stakeholders probably need to see what's going on with them.
So is this through anyone's web infrastructure, not just your CMS?
This is anyone being a HubSpot customer having our tracking code. So all our customers normally have their tracking code behind their website. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the volume is the 70,000 again.
It is again the 70,000. Yeah, that's right.
And if you bear in mind the level of, let's call it internet traffic anyway, that average line, the 0%, I think it's extraordinary to see brands traffic increase like that. And it's bound to be a combination. Some of the guys have been saying in the chat as well, of sitting around and not being as distracted as we were discussing. And I'm sure that marketing upsurge as well, those marketing emails going out, they're being opened and they're obviously driving traffic back. So within our analytics, Mark, we have source information, which is really important.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you have anything akin to that within this set of data?
Not yet. So we're planning to launch a source report. So when I have that ready, I'll drop it over to the whole group.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So you'll be able to share it, like what's working, what isn't.
Okay. So just before we go on, Simon Jones has asked, how do tracking codes work? So Simon, this is the easiest thing in the world. It's literally a snippet of code, a few lines of HTML code. Actually, it may not be HTML. No, I've said that. A few lines of code that go into the header or the footer of your website that allows the HubSpot technology to connect to your website. That's what gives you the analytics. What allows HubSpot to post the landing pages that you build and the blog articles, the website forms, calls to action, all the things that HubSpot does for you, if you like. It links with that little tiny piece of code. That's literally all it takes. Fantastic. I always love setting up a new customer and seeing the live chat. HubSpot comes with a free live chat, and it immediately pops up on the website as soon as the code goes in. It's quite cool.
Awesome, yeah, absolutely. And we have the whole analytics as well. So like if you think about Google Analytics, if you're familiar with that, we basically have the same technology, but then again, you have it all in one place, all within one dashboard.
So there's a question actually from Chris.
Yeah.
How does HubSpot's analytics, I guess is what he's talking about, compared to the Google Analytics?
Google Analytics just traffic, so HubSpot Analytics obviously takes it further, right? So we have insights into traffic, insight into your leads, and insight into your customers. So within one report, you can see, and basically with 2 clicks, so without being a Google Analytics expert, you can see, okay, from SEO, how many customers did I get in the last 12 months? I'd be able to pull that report up for you within a couple minutes. And that's the difference between how HubSpot works integrated, while Google Analytics is just really good at the top end. So like, how much traffic am I getting? Where's my traffic coming?
And do they tend to match? Because I know sometimes if you look at WordPress Analytics versus Google Analytics, you get different numbers because the methodologies are slightly different, aren't they? Does HubSpot give you a similar number to the Google Analytics version?
Yeah, it's similar, but you are seeing some variance. That's right. It's a minimal variance, but there is some difference. Yeah, you could obviously always good practice to compare them and kind of have them next to each other.
The main benefit of, as you said, just to reiterate that, and I talk to paid media clients a lot. So if you're using Facebook or PPC, you'll see traffic coming into your site through your Google Analytics, or maybe even through your Facebook advertising, Facebook advertising reports and dashboards. With the HubSpot version, you're tracking all the way to customer, down to a customer email address, first name, last name. So it's the singularly most effective ROI report I've ever seen, because it literally follows somebody out of Facebook onto your website, into your CRM, and then the activities that they conduct within the website and within your business. One of the truest paid media ROI analysis reports I've ever seen, I think. Just because of that. Clearly, that only applies if people fill out their data, right? If they become customers and they fill out the data, but you know then exactly who they are, and you continue to track them around your pixel estate, as us digital marketing types like to call it. Sorry,
exactly.
Mark.
No, that's great, Tony. So another thing that we can do is actually kind of tell you, if you would come back on my website and you're already downloaded something, you filled in a form before, I could actually see what you specifically were doing on the site, what pages did you visit, and be way more relevant in my outreach. And also, if you just came back on my site and wanted to chat in again, I already know who you are, so I can much more personalize how actually I'm communicating with you as a customer or a potential customer.
Yeah.
So that's really with HubSpot the whole integrated approach. We track you, you give consent, and from there we can also personalize your experience way more than Google Analytics could do, for example, or another tool there. So that's kind of traffic. Again, industry-wise, there's been some interesting stats here as well. It's basically the same industries that we looked at earlier in terms of that decrease in opportunities, in deals. Computer software actually seems to be doing really well from a website traffic perspective. So is construction, and so is consumer goods. So these actually are seeing kind of business growth, while some of the other ones, travel obviously, is seeing massive declines.
What's sorry, for me, what's the human resources line relate to? Is that job advertising? Is that all HR activity?
I would say any people-led business. So think about that would be HR tech, it would be recruitment, it would be employer branding. That would kind of be the three big ones.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Excellent. But yeah, it's not all service businesses, so that would not be part of it. Okay. In terms of like contact growth, so actually how our database is growing, we haven't seen too much of a decline if we look at overall numbers. So if you look at contacts added, there was a massive jump here, but overall we haven't seen too much of a difference, even not if we're comparing this per industry. Consumer goods has been up basically all the time, but for the rest we've seen quite a decline in databases, not taking into account consumer goods. Where it does get interesting, and that's I think something that all of us are kind of seeing, is communicating with businesses on our terms as consumers, and that's having conversations. So HubSpot has a tool, it's called Conversations. What it means is chatting in. So think about live chat, chatbots, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, those kind of new means of conversations. And that's kind of really what we're measuring here. And there we see something really interesting with COVID happening, is that people just want to communicate easier with businesses. So live chat is becoming essential. It's growing up month after month, 33% higher than last year right now. And we see this trend continue, that everybody wants to chat in, wants to have conversations instead of booking a call or having a meeting, just to ask a quick question and being served as they're used to.
I've just come off a webinar that was talking about university recruitment, and actually they identified exactly the same thing. Live chat is a key channel for university recruitment going forward. Seeing that Swansea were talking on this this webinar, Swansea University, and they had a very, very basic, barely functional app, live chat app last year, and it was just overwhelmed with traffic, fantastically successful. And yeah, I think that follows the move to digital, as we were talking earlier. I want to be able to do it online. I want to be able to do it on my phone. I want to be able to do it sort of hands off, no human contact necessarily. Just get the answer when I need it.
I might be sitting in my garden, just having a chat.
Yeah, exactly. Go on, Nigel.
Yeah, interesting that, because one of the things I've noticed, and it's purely an observational thing. People feeling so isolated, they need to talk to someone. And I've noticed that taking a walk to the beach, going for a paddle this morning, almost everyone we passed said good morning, which is really unusual, because most people just scurry along, get to where they have, and they've been doing that until now. But I've noticed it in the last few days, more and more people are talking to each other, wishing me good morning, making comments. Now, I'm one of these people who always talks. I'm one of these talkers, as you've noticed, and it's I think it's because people are isolated in their houses. They're not getting that water cooler conversation in the office that they used to, and also chatting to people on the train station and that sort of stuff. I know they don't do that in London, but I think more and more people are doing it now because they're isolated from their friends, they're away from everyone, so they're using all these technologies to do that. And I think it's quite important from what we're seeing here, is that especially people over a certain age. I think you're still getting it amongst the sort of up to 25-year age group. They tend to be a little bit more reticent about having a conversation. I've seen it often where people will talk, would rather not talk, and especially amongst younger people, 14 and 15-year-olds, when I'm in schools talking to them, they text each other, they message each other, but they don't actually physically talk to each other. And if someone phones somebody up, they don't answer it. They wait until the phone rings out, or they just say busy, and then they send them a text back saying, "What do you want?" They communicate through text rather than through the spoken word.
It's interesting. Simon's made a good observation as well, that maybe it's because they can't get through to anyone on the phone, because obviously everybody's on furlough.
Yeah.
Which is clearly a massive generalization.
Yeah, that is another issue. Yeah.
But I do wonder whether that is that reduction in call rates is related to the increase in live chat. As indirectly proportional to the increase in live chat. But having said that, this data is corroborated across other software vendors, across other industries.
The key thing we are seeing, it's more the way how you talk to your prospects or your customers, and that it's getting more conversational, maybe a little bit less formal, you could call it.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people having success with LinkedIn right now, and not by having these long LinkedIn emails, just by having a chat.
Yeah.
People are very open to having a chat. Instead of getting like these long sales emails, nobody is responding to those.
Yeah. My mother pops up on our live chat every time I post a blog and tells me well done. Very embarrassing, Mum. Anyway, sorry, Mark. Please carry on.
Anyone else has any questions or any similar observations regarding this?
Well, Simon, you obviously have stuff to say. There's a really good point there. Again, you tried with Colin Kamoiv and the live chat didn't work. So we're even seeing it as a problem, as a barrier to communication. And that's interesting. The telephone is the greatest branding tool. Do you want to expand on that, Tom, for us?
Yeah, certainly. I've got a book called Delivering Happiness by Tony Shire of Zappos, which has since been bought by Amazon. And he really redid all his telephone inbound call answering. He gave them authority. They were able to answer questions. If there was a dog in the background, they started talking about dogs, etc., and accents. And he says that the greatest branding tool is the telephone. I think it's in marketing. If people are phoning in to you, we should make it really, really easy. And then that's where the magic happens. If they've actually phoned in you, they're a captive audience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, it's interesting, and the live. I think that ties in with the live chat becoming increasingly informal. And I was blown away as a radio man, a commercial radio executive for many years in real radio, and the sadly now deceased Swansea Sound, or soon to be deceased Swansea Sound. These young university types were all raving about audio adverts on podcasts and in Spotify and what have you. So it does seem that some of these things, the human voice, will continue to play a really important part in the customer journey for sure. Chris, do you have a question? Your hands up, or do you need to go to the loo? What's the story?
I guess 8-9 years ago, video was struggling. The technology hadn't matured, and we know that how much value video, how we behave, how our demeanor is, makes a big difference in communicating our message. I think something like 80% of the value of a conversation is in how we see each other. So video has really come to the fore now. I hear what you're saying, Simon, about telephone calls if someone calls you, but if someone takes the time to, and Tony and I Zoom quite often, just send a message from Zoom and Tony gets it on his screen and he answers it, it's the same as a telephone call, but you've got the video. And I'll illustrate it in another way. I got my mother, who's 87, wouldn't touch technology at all. Tried to get her to have broadband, wasn't interested. Tried to get her to use an iPad, wasn't interested. The day before lockdown here, I got her. I sold my soul to the devil. I bought a Facebook portal. For most of you, I don't know if you know what it is, but it just looks like, to my mother, a digital picture frame. So she's got my mobile broadband router there, sitting on her TV. She doesn't know it's broadband. She just see this box sitting there. She's forgotten about it now. And she's got the Facebook portal, and she can push a button, and she calls my sister, my friends. We have conversations every single day with her, and where on the telephone, she wouldn't. She'd always wait for us to call her. But there's a mental switch gone on with a lot of people that actually, it's because video technology is so reliable. The volcano 10 years ago, we tried to use video. Video technology was just not reliable. It was poor. And it was very, very expensive. Look how much it's cost most of us to go online on Zoom. It's nothing if you have the free version. And it's only, was it $11.99 for the paid first?
It's about 15 quid. Yeah, it's nothing, is it really?
It's absolutely nothing. So I think I agree with the concept, Simon, but I think now with video, the way video has developed, even in the last 6 months, it's actually as good and if not better, because you can see people, you can build that rapport because you know what they look like, and we're in each other's homes, aren't we?
Indeed. I totally agree, Chris, on that. The point I was making was perhaps like 4 or 5 years ago, etc. But if somebody does pick up the telephone, that's really good one-to-one interaction.
It's fantastic engagement level, isn't it?
The video is there. People can see it offline as well. So where you post these, and I think it's absolutely essential that people have a YouTube channel these days.
So when does
what you think?
When does HubSpot bring out the video live chat, Mark? Is that later this year?
There's some good stuff we can share. It's regarding recorded videos. So a lot of our top customers, what they're using is recorded videos. Again, we do believe a lot in self-help. I agree with you. Human to human is so important in building your brand. We do have a lot of customers ourselves that really love us because they can just find the answers themselves and they don't have to talk to a human all the time. So I think it's a balance of both worlds. We use a lot of recorded videos, meaning you have a question, we answer it through a screen share like this, record it, and anyone who needs to find that answer can find that recording online. Or we even send it over. So that's one of the things how we try to delight in customer support as well. But again, human to human is going to be key. We just balance it with recorded videos right now, which is another HubSpot tool.
Simon,
I've had a really hi guys. I've had a really good experience of the last couple of weeks. My wife has been working on the virtual open day with colleagues here, and to see the fact that it's not just recorded videos, which I think are great because it gives instant expertise, but also at the same time, the live chat situation is becoming more and more important by the minute to actually get that interaction, but the two-way interaction, which makes a big difference. But I've been bowled over for what I've seen and what she's put together the last couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product in a couple of weeks when it's online.
Excellent.
I'm surprised actually that they haven't done a video messenger system like you do with Facebook. It's something that would enable a lot of more face-to-face conversations like we're having now with Kevin. A beautiful blue sky behind him, and making it envious for a lot of people working in offices.
It's been interesting. It seems like that system they're putting together has evolved. They've learned a lot in a short space of time, but I take it they are desperately looking for guidance and development on it.
There's a very interesting point coming from Chris Fox. My personal view is anytime I need to call your business, it's because you failed to deliver in some way. So the telephone is actually a point of escalation. I think that's quite cool, because if I could pay my bill online, I will. If I can make an order online, I will. You can even now buy complex technology. I was looking at my Sky app the other day, and I've booked an engineer to call today because my internet's so bad. You can buy your new package, you can upgrade or downgrade your package. The only time you actually want to speak to somebody is when you want to shout at somebody. I think that's probably a good point.
Can I disagree, Tony?
There
we go.
Thanks for that grenade there, Chris. I walked straight to that one. Go on, Ian.
Yeah, I disagree, because if I'm going to work with you, rather than just buy an item from you, I need to know what it's like working with you. I need to see what you like, how you react, get to know you, the personal chemistry side. And whether that is by phone or whether that's by video, I need to do that somewhere down the line.
There's possibly a level of purchase complexity at play there, though, isn't it? You know, you might do that if you want to buy a car off somebody, and certainly buying property. But you know, maybe ordering your in-home entertainment or your takeaway. I really don't want to speak to somebody at the other end of the phone in a busy pizza shop, and I can just hit a couple of keys on my phone and have it delivered within 30 minutes.
Do you converse through the window?
For me, the only exception is when you're buying a personal service. So if you're buying consulting or something like that, then
yes,
clearly it matters who the person is. But other than that, I want the thing that you're selling or the service that you're providing. That's all I want. I have all the friends I need, and I can find more friends anytime I want. I don't necessarily need the business. And to be honest, I spend half my life with people phoning me trying to get rid of them on the phone.
Yeah.
I was just going to make a point. You talked about the telephone. It just struck me. Most support contracts in the B2B world, if you look at the last page, it's the escalation page if things go wrong. And in those, it's the address, it's the most senior person in that organization. That could be the MD in a smaller organization, but it'll be a senior VP somewhere in support. And it's always a telephone number and address are the primary routes for that. And that really hasn't caught up to the modern day world.
It's fascinating. There's a few other comments flown into chat. Let me just pick up. Simon Peters has flagged that one of his customers he's working with at the minute is now selling cars completely hands-off, completely online, and delivery directly to the home. You don't have to see the car. You don't have to talk to the salesperson. You don't have to. I've actually bought a car that way myself, sight unseen, as it were. Nigel mentions that it all depends on the part of the sales cycle, where the video or the phone chat is. And yes, that's very much the case. One of the observations the university chat I was on earlier made was that live chat is very much part of the engagement and conversion process. So it won't necessarily drive any business to the site, but it'll help you convert business and help you convert business to a bigger order value as well. And Simon Jones again comes in with a whole number of touch points before we buy from someone. That's absolutely the case, isn't it? And they're not all face to face, and they're not all based on website visits, and not all based on the telephone, I guess. So it is a rich mixture. But interesting that the old telephone created such a outpouring of of input there.
Excellent. So yeah, lastly, to kind of close off in terms of data, because there's been a lot of data thrown at you. Sorry about that. But that's kind of ad spend. And
this is the one that breaks my heart. Oh my God, look at that.
As you can probably imagine, like ad spend has been down. It's been cut quite heavily. So around 27% average. So HubSpot integrates with all the ad platforms. So we have Google, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn data, in case you're wondering. Like we don't display it right now per region because they wouldn't allow us, but it's for basically all company sizes, everybody's making this decision. If we look at industries, it seems that only consumer goods, I think like that's probably the e-commerce, has been relatively positive, but everything else has been down quite a lot, as you can see.
And again, just to stress, guys, that's actual numbers. That's not people filling up surveys or telling people what they are going to do or what they want to do. That's the pounds and pennies that are swishing through the HubSpot ad management, directly plugged into Facebook, plugged into Google. I found that absolutely fascinating. I've never seen data as granular on spend as that before. I think it's brilliant.
Excellent. So yeah, like Tony mentioned, it is all our data. We'll be able to share this with you. So feel free to kind of look around. We have a timeline here as well. If you want to if you don't want to go through this data ever again after today, you can just follow this timeline. We highlight it all for you. We give you some updates in terms of what's going on, what's changing over time based on the data. Okay, so a lot more easy, a lot more to the point. Lastly, just to close off, we currently also changed as a business because of COVID. One of the things that we're currently offering is our growth platform for a reduced fee for small businesses. What that means is you basically have a CRM plus a marketing hub plus a sales hub and a customer support suite for a fee of around £42 per month. So what it means is managing all your customers in one place with all the tools you need for £42 to keep it really easy for you. What do these hubs do? Marketing basically replaces your MailChimp or email marketing tool plus your plugins that you're probably using for WordPress or the other websites, like a Typeform or something like this. We cover all of that. So landing pages, forms, email campaigns, segmentation. From the sales side, you just have a fully integrated CRM, and we do cloud calling. So if the phone is really important to you, you can call internationally with HubSpot for no fees within that package. We can also actually track emails, so tell you, did someone actually open my email or my proposal? Did they actually click on it? And just automatically have a meeting scheduler. You probably have some of those tools already, but you don't have them in one place. And that's kind of where HubSpot makes a difference. Okay. And obviously we have the live chat. We have a chatbot for you as well that you can utilize. And that all does go into this place of Starter Growth Suite, which is around £42 a month.
And that's for the year, £42 a month for the full year.
Exactly. For the full year, the offer is £42 a month. Yeah.
I'll put my own little personal plug in if anybody's interested in that. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you about it. You don't have to talk to Mart. Although you're quite welcome. But I'd be happy to talk you through that and how to get it all set up and stuff. It is worth mentioning actually that I often advocate for the free HubSpot tools as well. There are a number of free tools based on the CRM, which is free for up to 1 million records, which is just incredible. It's a very, very powerful piece of technology. And again, I'd be happy to talk to you about that as well.
And I can agree with that. Tony's working with me on a particular project now. We're deploying the free version to this client as part of a data protection and a cyber project because it reduces their data protection risks quite significantly going for a centralized CRM. But during that project, it's just very clear that other features in the paid versions of the product are going to be absolutely invaluable to them as they go out and do get donors for the charity and others. So yeah, it's a good starting point.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. I'll slip you a file later.
Thanks much. Very nice.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions before we say goodbye to Mart? We're just about on time. We're normally a bit later than that. He obviously knows how to run a call, unlike me. Has anybody got anything specifically for HubSpot?
Yeah, I've got one. Tony.
Go for it.
I've got various different people that would love to be able to schedule FaceTime messages and things like that, and perhaps emails in the future, and marketing, all that sort of thing. Is that something that HubSpot could provide for?
FaceTime?
No, well, the messenger service.
Schedule on Facebook, you mean? Schedule Facebook Messenger?
Messages, yeah.
Mark, can you schedule messengers through the conversations tool?
So you can schedule like Facebook posts, right? Like the posts or post or Facebook Messenger posting?
Messenger, yeah.
So yeah, you can use our bot for Facebook Messenger. So like we have a chatbot you can utilize to kind of automate a lot of the Facebook Messenger activities. So like you can use it obviously just for chat, as you would use live chat, but you can also build a bot on Facebook Messenger that basically deals with that, and they can push out messages or even automatically set up replies if you want to. Yeah.
Oh wow! Is that within different stages? But
you can get started already with the starter pack. So the starter pack already has that. And then we have some more automation features depending on what size the client is, where it's like another automation level. But in terms of like conversational, that's all in the starter pack. It's all included. You could even test it out in free already, if I'm correct. I think it should work.
I was going to say it's possible to integrate integrate SMS, Simon. But again, that's probably going to add into the stack that you get, especially for your starter. But you can push out SMS messages and so on again from that same CMS from the same place.
Okay. Yeah. Before we're closing off, like thanks everyone for your time. In terms of joining, if you have to go, obviously I know it's a busy schedule. Anyone have any more questions? I have a couple more minutes.
Chris, your hand's up. Is that because you've left it up, or because you've got another question?
Because I've left it up.
Okay.
In confidence.
That was a preemptive raising of the hand in case you had a question. I like it. Forward thinking. Well, Mart, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for your time.
Excellent.
It's been a brilliant turnout. Thanks everybody for showing up. I really appreciate it. The video will be available on YouTube, as Simon's already mentioned. It's a great marketing channel, and I'll post it into the groups as well, so that you get to see it. And stand by for more information on Doug's blockchain session, which is basically blockchain without the jargon, right? So I think that'll be a really good session next week as well. Thanks again. Thanks everybody for being there, and I'll see you through the week. Thanks again, Mart.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, Mark.
Yes. Bye.